Hi everybody, it's Carla from Casey Creates, and I thought it'd be fun to have you join me as I create some clay pumpkins. I like to begin my adult hand building beginning clay classes with teaching how to make pinch pots. Now I do have a video in my playlist on how to make a pinch pot, so I'm not going to go into how to do that in this video, but what I would like to do is show you how to create a pumpkin out of two pinch pots. So I've quickly pinched out a pot here. The goal with the pinch pots for this is not to keep too much weight in the bottom of the pinch pot. You don't want it too thick because they can get really heavy and take a long time to dry. If they don't thoroughly dry and you fire them, the likelihood of the bottom blowing off is great. So you want to make two pinch pots. Notice the top one I made with a slightly smaller ball of clay, which is fine. I just want to flare it out so that the two will fit together, which will make sense to you in a minute. But pinching, making pinch pots can be a really relaxing little activity. So I'll tend to make like 6 balls of clay and pinch them all at once and try to make 3 pumpkins at a time. So there is my shallow little pinch pot to meet up with the slightly larger one. Now you do want to score the surface of the clay where they're going to meet, and I have a little scoring tool here that's kind of like a rake, but you can use just the tip of your needle tool or a little piece of a plastic hair comb, which I showed in my hand-built tools video. But this process is really important. So I'm going to score both pinch pots at the lip, which is the top of the pot. Get some decent grooves in there. And what happens then is the two will fuse together better because the clay particles will settle down in those little grooves. Now this part's important too. When you go to put the two together, also when you put your slip on, you know you have enough if it's shiny. Don't oversaturate it with water, but if you can kind of see a little bit of a glisten, then you know you have enough on there. I just tap it on with my fingertips, but you could use a brush or a sponge. And we call the slip water slip, but slip is usually just a pasty clay. It's about the consistency of thick pancake batter. So if you can tell, I set the two on top, and now I'm kind of pushing them together like I'm making a meatball or a snowball. And that's because I don't want to start smoothing it together until it's fused together nicely. Otherwise I'll do this little undercut thing and it'll start taking on the shape of a figure 8. And I want it to stay more in the shape of a sphere. So then you just use some pressure and smooth clay over the seam. And this is going to fuse both of our pinch pots together to make one form. If you have trouble, maybe your clay is just too dry, which you don't want to start out with clay that's dry for pinch pots, but if there's a little bit of an issue, you can take some soft clay, roll a little coil, and I call it caulking. You can just kind of caulk it around the seam and then use that clay to blend it in and smooth out. I don't always recommend this, especially on the pumpkin project, because your goal is to not get too much weight on your clay. But it is an option for fusing the seams together. I think I just have really strong fingertips because I can get a lot of the clay to move over the seam just with some firm pressure. So there you have it. I have a nice little sphere here. If you're really concerned about it being smooth, you can also take your metal rib and just smooth it that way. And you will see a little cracking. That's okay. As long as it doesn't get out of control, you can always smooth it. Then the other fun part about a pinch pot like this is once the air is trapped, you can kind of manipulate the shape. And I love that a pumpkin is never the same size. So you can make it oblong, you can make it kind of wonky. So I'm going to show you now how to put the grooves in the pumpkin. First, I like to put a little bit of an indentation where the stem would be growing out to keep it looking kind of natural. I do it on the top and the bottom where the vine, where it's attached, where it may be attached to the vine. I kind of dip it in there, and then I dip it on the top like so. And then I take my wooden knife, which is my clay tool, and just roll it from the bottom to the top, and I start getting these indentions, which to me are like the lines you would see naturally in a pumpkin. But if you just start at the bottom where I made that little pit and roll it all the way to the top. If you don't have a wooden knife, like this is the stick from a corn dog. I think a wooden skewer would work. You could even use like the handle of a paintbrush. But I'm just doing this little pressing and rocking motion all the way from the bottom to the top. And I'm going to go over it one more time to just get a real defined groove, like so. And then I want to take my finger and just kind of smooth it to soften that line so it doesn't look too manufactured. It will also maybe change the shape of it a little bit, give it more of a true organic look. And so I'm going to just kind of do a little bit of this, maybe even make it a little, okay. All right, and now I'm going to make a stem. So I'll set that aside with some soft clay. And I always start kind of with a round ball. And I'm going to roll it a little oblong. And I'm tapping it because I want the top to have a little bit of a flat surface, like so. So that's going to be my stem, but before I put it on, I'm going to put some grooves in it, just with my needle tool. I think this is kind of a true, it gives it that kind of veining look that you would see on the stem of a pumpkin, that you know how it feels kind of fuzzy and prickly. Anyway, so there's this grooves, but because they look so harsh, I'm just gonna rub my finger over them a little bit and then give it a twist. So now it takes on more of a wood look, but it has a bit of a twist, like it's growing in a vine, on a vine shape. And then you just stick it down in that little indentation that we created before we started putting the lines on. I want to score down in there, add some water or slip in both spots, and then just take your stem and kind of manipulate it, jiggle it, and press. Make sure it's down in there. See, it's kind of fun. Now the other thing you want to remember to do is take your needle tool and put a hole in the bottom so the air can get out. That's important because, like I said, these are thick and you want the air to get out and you want them to dry well before you fire them. So there is my little pinch pot clay pumpkin. If you want to do something to add more decoration, you could put a leaf on the side of it. I would just roll a thin little flat piece of clay. Now I typically would get a real leaf from outside to get the true veining of a leaf. I just added a little water to that because it was cracking. But I don't have one in here right now, so I'm going to take a cookie cutter. And the only time I'll use a cookie cutter is if I manipulate it a little bit so it doesn't translate as, oh look, she has a cookie cutter leaf on hers. So I'm going to press it a little bit and kind of change the shape some. And then I'll just put my own little veining on the leaf with the tip of my needle tool. So if you can see, I just put a little bit of faux veining on there. I need a little bit more. And then you just want to score it. This is important, especially for little pieces. You want to make sure they're not going to go falling off. Okay, and then a little bit of slip on both spots. And then I'm going to give it a little twist before I stick it down. Okay, so there's my leaf. And then maybe a little vine coming out would be cute too. I know a lot of the people in my class loved this project, and all of our shelves would be filled with all these cute little pumpkins. But you can find these now in the Dollar Tree and all the different stores, but it's even more fun to me to be able to line them up on the mantle or a counter somewhere, and people go, "Oh, where'd you get your pumpkins?" And you can say, "Well, I made them." So I just made a coil and added some grooves to it, and you can tell I'm kind of getting into this because I didn't even tell you how I did it. I'm sorry. So I'm just going to add a little slip, press my little curly Q vine on there, and I am going to attach it to the side of the pumpkin here just to make it a little more secure. And then off camera, I would probably putz with it a little just to get a little, some of the lumpy bumpies and things off. Better to clean it up though when it's more leather hard. So if you make one, just remember 2 pinch pots. Don't forget your air hole at the bottom. Make sure you score and slip all the parts together well. And have fun making pumpkins. Here's some of the ones I made with the kids in the kids clay camps. They have this really bright shiny orange. It's a little intrusive in color, but you know, it's a nice pumpkin color. I like more of a satin finish, but these look nice lined up in 3s. And then I have one that I want to show you because you can take, once it's leather hard, you can take a knife and just do that little angled cut like you would if you were cutting out the lid of a jack-o'-lantern, and then it would come off. You can put water in there and even put little flowers, which I do with this one, and set it on the mantle so that there's 3 and then one has flowers coming out of it. So there's my little fun demo on how to do pinch pot clay pumpkins. I hope you'll give it a try. I do think this would work with just air dry clay. And you can find air dry clay in the regular craft store. I think Crayola makes a brand of it, and you can just paint that with regular acrylic paint. So have fun making your pinch pot pumpkins. I'll be back with another clay demo again soon. Have a good day.